Welcome back to the channel. My name is Nicholas and I'm a cello player, composer, and arranger, and I really enjoy recording strings and incorporating cello into all different kinds of music and collaborating with different kinds of artists. I started playing the cello as a kid through the classical system, and almost every string player that I know is also classically trained. Something that always really got me energized and was honestly a really big motivator for continuing to play the cello as a teenager was hearing cello and other classical instruments in various kinds of like pop culture contexts, whether that was in movies and soundtracks or on the radio in pop music. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at today, some pop music that incorporates cello and other string instruments. I pulled up a few songs that came to mind when I thought of strings in pop music. I have heard all of these songs before, so this isn't necessarily like a first time reaction as much as, I guess, sharing an appreciation of some different ways that strings get incorporated into pop music today. And we're going to start things off here with Dance the Night by Dua Lipa. Okay, awesome. Instantly recognizable intro. Of course, this is from the Barbie movie. I've seen it twice now, and no spoilers, but this kind of violin riff at the beginning here is almost used as like a musical calling card for the movie. And it's just this really great pairing where the lively strings are used to establish kind of a party tone and disco throwback for at least the opening part of the film.
Turn the rhythm up, don't you wanna just come along for the ride?
Bass is so catchy.
You can see my heartbeat tonight. I can take the heat, baby, best believe that's the moment I shine. Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance.
Okay, yeah, so we kind of heard the violins coming back in at the pre-chorus there in more of a sustained fashion as opposed to the more percussive or lively playing in the intro. That's pretty typical. You know, pop songs are all about keeping the listener engaged, always introducing new elements as we go into different sections. So bringing the violins back in kind of reintroduces the texture from the beginning, but in a more subtle way. The way the violins start to build things up at the pre-chorus, I guess in combination with the chords, also just introduces a little bit of tension, which then gets released at the chorus when the violins come back in with that more lively riff.
Watch me dance, dance the night away. My heart could be burning, but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance, dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running, I won't get out of place. Lately, I've been moving close to the edge.
Okay, great. So that violin riff just kind of gets repeated all throughout the chorus there, releasing some of that tension that was built up in the pre-chorus. And then they have this kind of like shot on the downbeat of verse 2. This is a very signature kind of disco sound, I guess, where the bow, is used to strike the string quite fast, but also at the same time, the note is pulled downwards in pitch. So you kind of get this sliding effect or this kind of decay, not just in volume, but in pitch as well. And it just helps create a very shimmery and lively sound.
I've been moving close to the edge, still be looking my best. I stay on the beat, you can count on me, I ain't missing no steps. Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance.
Yeah, very cool. This bass line is just so groovy. It's very relentless. And the song honestly reminds me a lot of Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees. Obviously, very staple disco hit from the 70s. Similar tempo, very groovy, relentless bass line, punctuated by these lively string riffs, and also incorporating more kind of like padded strings to build up tension in different parts.
When my heart breaks, when my world shakes, I don't play safe.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because this song is obviously a very lively kind of party song, but it definitely doesn't feel one-dimensional. And I think the violins are used to really great effect here because not only are they used to lend some of that shimmery disco tone to the song, but they also almost feel like they're adding a bit of threat or this kind of like slightly ominous or edgy feeling to the song. It might also be just a little bit in combination with where Dua Lipa sings some of these lyrics like "When the World Shakes." It almost reminds me of something you'd hear in like a James Bond song. And the violins in this bridge here are also used to evoke some of that Bond energy or Kenergy.
When my world shakes, I don't play safe. Don't you know about me? I could dance, I could dance, I could dance, dance tonight.
Okay, nice. Yeah, really great use of strings in the song and recreation of some of this iconic disco texture. And I was also really happy to see this kind of woven into the fabric of the film in a meaningful way. Okay, so next we're moving on to some Ariana Grande. Her album Positions actually has a lot of strings incorporated on it, including the title track, which you've probably all heard. But I want to take a little bit of a closer look at the opening song on the album, which is called Shut Up.
My presence sweet in my
Yeah, really cool way to open the album. You can tell it's a very simple strings part, but you can kind of tell that it's EQ'd in this way where it kind of takes the bass out of it and feels almost like it's being played out of some like vintage speakers. And if you look at any of the artwork from this album, it's very retro styled. She's dressed almost like she's from the 60s or 70s with this kind of like hippie flower earring and just her like hairstyle and outfit, and how like the photos are filtered as well. So even though it's a very simple strings line right from the top, it's already doing a lot to kind of build out this world and immerse you in this environment.
presence sweet in my aura bright. Diamonds cut for my appetite. Guess it fucking just clicked one night. All them demons help me see shit differently. So don't be sad for me.
Okay, awesome. I love this use of pizzicato here. Pizzicato, or plucking on these kinds of string instruments like violin, viola, cello, in general gives you a rounder sound when compared to plucking on a guitar. And that comes down to a couple different things. One is just the part of your finger that you use to do the plucking. On a guitar, you'd be more likely to use your nails, whereas on these kinds of string instruments, you're using like this part of the finger. So that's just kind of softening the attack and giving it a more gentle, rounded sound. And that's really great for the intro of this song and the intro to this album, where the energy hasn't been built up yet. And another big difference between plucking on like orchestral string instruments versus a guitar is that the sound doesn't ring out for as long when you're plucking on like a cello or a violin versus a guitar. The sound dies out a lot quicker. So that's also really great if you're trying to create this kind of more sparse environment and you don't want those pitches or those harmonics ringing out for too long.
How you been spending your time? How you be using your time? You be so worried about mine. Can't even get yourself none. You know you sound so dumb. You know you sound so dumb. So maybe you should shut.
Okay, yeah, there's also very little reverb applied here, so that's just also really great for maintaining this kind of sparse environment. And there's really great energy in the bowed attacks that just kind of come in on the second half of the verse here. It sounds very string quartet-esque, and it's just really satisfying to hear some of these syncopated parts lining up between the cello and the viola and the bowed parts in the pizzicato.
If only you would shut up. Yeah, that's why you should shut up.
Okay, yeah, and at this point, some sustained violins have come in. I really like how in the back half of the chorus there, the violins and Ariana Grande are kind of playing the melody or outlining the melody in unison with each other. And this track was actually produced by a violinist named Peter Lee Johnson. I remember watching a lot of Peter's videos on YouTube back in the day. I think his production style and his approach to playing violin was very influential on me and really inspired me to kind of explore a bit of this world on the cello. So it's really cool to see what he's up to now and how he's continuing to showcase classical instruments in tracks like this by mainstream artists like Ariana Grande. Okay, awesome. Really whimsical ending there that wraps up this intro and just kind of really brings you into the rest of this album. Yeah, that was a really great showcase for the string section. Definitely check out the other tracks on this album that feature strings really prominently, like the next track, 34, 35, and I mentioned earlier the title track, Positions. Okay, now we're going to jump to another opening track off a huge pop album that came out in the last couple of years. The song is called Strangers by Nature off of Adele's album 30.
I'll be taking flowers to the cemetery of my heart for all of my lovers in the present and in the dark. Every anniversary I'll pay respects and say I'm sorry, for they never stood a chance as if they could, when no one knows what it's like to be ours.
Okay, yeah, this song is gorgeous and no strings yet, but there's also this kind of retro vibe that's established through the keyboard that's used here. I don't know if this is like a Wurlitzer sound, but it's definitely got that kind of old, soulful, almost kind of organ-like quality to it.
I've never seen the sky this color before. It's like I'm noticing everything a little bit more. Now that all the dust has settled, I rebut all my rebuttals. No one knows what it's like to be us.
Okay, so this song has a much larger string section. It's a lot more sweeping and cinematic, and I really enjoy like the shape of this string arrangement where it kind of weaves in and out of the melody in a way that just feels very meaningfully paired. When it comes in, it's a lot more subtle and kind of creeping in. And then after Adele ends a phrase, the strings kind of build really quickly in volume and intensity to fill that space before the next phrase starts. It feels very fluid despite it being a very large ensemble.
Strangers by nature.
Okay, yeah, another really great example of the strings or the instrumentals kind of filling the space between phrases. I really like a melody of a song that leaves room for this kind of stuff because it just really allows for a more present building of the soundscape.
Strangers by nature. Will I ever
Okay, so this song was co-written and I guess produced by Ludwig Göransson, who was a composer who did the soundtrack for Black Panther and The Mandalorian and Oppenheimer. And he comes from this kind of like hip-hop producing background, actually. And in the chorus here is where you hear this like very digital sounding, like a very pure digital sounding kick come in. And I think that is something that adds a very interesting dimension to the song. And you'll also notice how Ludwig Göransson incorporates some of these digital and hip-hop elements into his soundtracks. In Black Panther, obviously, but also in like The Mandalorian and Tenet and The Book of Boba Fett. Those soundtracks are all really interesting blends of digital and classical and other kinds of soundscapes.
Will I ever get there? Oh, I hope someday I'm to nurture what I've done.
Okay, yeah, awesome. I don't think there's any strings after this. Strangers by Nature is definitely my favorite song on this album. Probably one of my favorite Adele songs overall. She has some earlier songs on like her album 19 that make really great use of strings. So I was really happy to see the orchestral string section have a really big role right at the top of this album as well. So I'm really looking forward to this next song. It's called Running with the Wolves by Aurora, and we're actually going to be listening to an acoustic version of this song. It has a very stripped back instrumentation, just vocals, acoustic guitar, a very minimal drum set, and cello. And there's actually a video for this version, so yeah, let's check it out. Okay, very nice. Similar kind of idea to what I had said about the Ariana Grande song, where the pizzicato on the cello is just really great for this kind of sparse, almost like uncertain vibe at the beginning of this song. It's a really great match for the song itself, which is a little bit mysterious and a little bit haunting, and the lower register is also an important part of creating that.
But we're running out of time. All the echoes in my mind cry. There's blood on your lies. The sky's up and wide. There is nowhere for you to hide. The haunted moon is shining. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the trick or treat.
Okay, that's really cool. Basically, they almost like pulled back the instrumentation a little bit in the pre-chorus, and then pulled it back again for the chorus. The pizzicato in the cello throughout the verse is kind of filling in the lower register. It's almost kind of like a bass part, and it's also filling in the rhythm. So when that part cuts out and the cello switches to more of like a sustained bowed part, you kind of just inherently get a little bit of this loss of energy. But what they do here is they kind of intentionally use that loss of rhythm to pull back a little bit.
Trick or treat, what would it be? I walk alone, I'm everything.
Okay, Aurora's voice, so beautiful, and it's such a great fit for this like style of instrumentation. Even just the way that she dies away very quickly after her phrases, it's a similar idea to the pizzicato dying away. And so both of those elements work really well as part of this sparse arrangement. This song is also a really great choice for an acoustic version, and I think that comes down to a couple things, being the rhythm of the melody and the lyrics, and also the rhythm of that pizzicato cello part. They're able to propel the song forward even in this kind of limited instrumentation. That's something that I kind of wanted to do a more dedicated video on, just like what kind of song makes a good acoustic version. So yeah, let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in seeing.
There's blood on your lies, the sky's open wide. There is nowhere for you to hide. The hand is moon is shining. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the.
Yeah, they're making such great use of the instruments that are available to them. Obviously, you've got two of the band members singing backup vocals here, which is just really adding to the richness of the arrangement, or the range that they have with the intensity. They're able to carry the momentum forward into the second chorus by having the cello drop down to a lower register to fill in more of the bass, while the guitar and the drums continue to build. So that's also just a really great contrast with what they did in the first chorus.
A million voices, silent dreams, where hope is left so incomplete. I'm running with her. I'm running with her. I'm running with the.
Okay, so the cello is doing this kind of soltasto technique, which just gives this very like whispery, almost kind of like breaking voice sound. And it's really appropriate for, I guess, where we've come in the journey of this song, which is kind of like the low point in intensity before they build up again for the final chorus. It matches the energy of Aurora's vocals really well too. Yeah, really great just artistic choice here.
So I'm running with her. I'm running with her. I'm running with her. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the wolves tonight. I'm running with the wolves. I'm running with the.
Nice. Yeah, they killed it. And this cello player here, he did such a great job. I think his name is Matthias Monson. The pizzicato was really clean. I think it's actually harder than it sounds. And the bowed parts just were a really great match for Aurora's energy and the journey of the song throughout. And this song, Running with the Wolves, was actually used in Wolfwalkers, which is a really beautiful, unique animated film from a couple years ago. And there's almost kind of this like bardcore version of this song that's used in a very pivotal scene in that film. So yeah, definitely check that out. Okay, so another song I wanted to listen to is called Afterglow by Luna Lee. Luna Lee is a Canadian singer and producer, and she went on tour with Japanese Breakfast last year. Super talented, and her songs are all very dreamy and well produced and incorporate strings really well. She plays violin and guitar and harp. And her songs also just have this kind of like intimate quality, almost kind of like a bedroom pop. So yeah, let's take a listen. Yeah, really catchy right off the top. Great violin lines opening this. And I love an intro that establishes kind of the the fuller soundscape of a song with elements that will come back later.
You stir my heart around in your pot. You mix it up with your vinegar smiles, and you tell me I'm the child. You never believed me when I told you I'm a fairy. I was birthed from a flower, feeling all sweet and sour.
Yeah, her lyrics, they stick in your head and they're very visual. And I love the way she sings this verse here where it's a little bit lazy. It's almost just even built into the rhythm there with some of these like triplets. And yeah, it just feels very easygoing and just adds to that kind of like dreamy quality of the song.
I spoke all the words that you said. Don't tell me your loving is dead. No, where's the glow? Oh, babe, you got some dust in your head. We ran out of things to have said. No, where's the glow?
Yeah, something really cool that she does here in the chorus, basically she puts the guitar strum on beat 2. This is just a device that I always really love because it feels very fresh and a little bit unexpected. And of course, introducing the harp as well at the chorus just adds this very kind of bright, flowery texture to the song.
She looked like she was going to dream me away. If I ever met you in my dreams or on the street, I would not say hello. I'd get you in the afterglow.
Nice. Okay, so there's a little bit of that like delayed gratification there. You expect that the chorus is going to come in there after the verse, but instead she brings the violins back from the beginning of the song. So at the same time, it's like the satisfying feeling of hearing this familiar element returning, while at the same time getting a bit of this unexpected feeling of getting this extra section there instead of the chorus. So yeah, it's really great song structure.
You said that you would never leave me, but you denied me of my daydream. Oh, how I love you, but I need to explore how to be alone.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot happening at the end of the song that I really love. One thing is like doing a half verse at the end of a song, but with lyrics that kind of subvert the meaning of the song or add like a little bit of a bittersweet twist. Also, ending the song on a major 7th chord with an emphasis on the major 7th. I always think that's just like a great, slightly ambiguous, very dreamy way of ending a song. And then lastly, using the pedal lift of the piano to kind of wrap things up or cut everything off. I think that's a great way of reminding the listener of the analog quality of the song, while also just providing a very like clean way to end off in silence while the listener can kind of like reflect on what they just listened to. So yeah, I really love this song and all of Luna Lee's music. Definitely check it out. She's also got these instrumental EPs of what she calls jams. And those are just really great to listen to in the background if you're working on something or just trying to get inspired. Okay, moving on to Carly Rae Jepsen. This is the title track from her album, The Loneliest Time. It's really beautiful, and it also features Rufus Wainwright. So yeah, let's take a listen.
I've had one of those bad dreams where we're standing on your street. I quit smoking those cigarettes, but I'm never getting over it. And you're looking right through me, just like Shakespeare on a tragedy. But our story never finished it, 'cause our love will never finish it. I'm coming up.
Yeah, their voices go so well together. I think both Carly Rae Jepsen and Rufus Wainwright have this kind of like edge to their voices, but it's a very like sweet edge that just makes it very pleasing to listen to them sing melodies. And yeah, I don't know, it's very like feel good voices, I guess.
I'm thinking over the night. I could be yours, just like before. Rewrite another track, 'cause we've had the loneliest time. If you wanna tell me, if you wanna tell me, if you wanna tell me, maybe leave a note for me. If you wanna tell me, if you wanna tell me, if you wanna tell me.
I've had more of those bad dreams.
Okay, so there were some beautiful counter melodies in the chorus from the strings, and then they also brought them back right here before verse 2 after a little interlude to kind of like facilitate in the next section. So yeah, that's a really great use of strings, using them to facilitate some of these transitions between sections of the song.
You were 10 feet in front of me. I went running, but I couldn't catch just the shadow of your silhouette.
When you spoke the words to me, when you left, I still need to unpack it. Let's say sorry for another night, 'cause this time, love, we're gonna get it right. I'm coming on.
Okay, very nice. The violins kind of come back in halfway through verse 2 with these bouncing octaves there. And then they play the rest of verse 2 with a much more kind of like lush padding. That's just some really great variety in the strings arrangement. It's almost kind of saying like, we can do both. And I found out that the strings in this song were actually arranged by an artist named Cody Fry. If you've never heard of Cody Fry, definitely check him out. He's got a bunch of these videos. I think they're called the Symphony Sessions, where it's just him singing at the piano along with like an orchestral string section. And the arrangements are all very beautiful, very lush. And I have a friend who got married last year and wanted to sing for his wife at their wedding reception. So he got a bunch of us string players together, and we performed a Cody Fry song at their reception. So yeah, that was a really beautiful memory for me, and I'm really glad I got to be a part of that.
What happened was, we reached the moon, but lost in space. I think we got there all too soon. But you know what? I'm coming back for you, baby. I'm coming back for you.
Okay, I love that strings part so much. It's so energetic, it's so bouncy, and it just sounds like it would be such a blast to play. That section right there is definitely what I had in mind when I thought about including this song in this video. And I did another video about how I got to play at the Juno Awards this year. That's kind of like the Canadian version of the Grammys. And when they first asked me to play at the Junos, they didn't say anything about which artist I would get to play with. And I was kind of like secretly hoping that Carly Rae Jepsen might be performing The Loneliest Time at the ceremony, and that I'd get to play this strings part here.
And in the morning, sun hits
The water is this Savannah.
Yeah, I think that's a very beautiful, reflective way of ending the song and also ending the album. At the end there with those like lush strings, it really almost feels like just the curtains like slowly coming down. Listening to this song is very feel good and very reflective. Okay, so this video wouldn't be complete without some Britney Spears. This song is probably the first thing that came to mind when I thought about strings in pop music, and of course I'm talking about Toxic.
Baby, can't you see?
Okay, wow. Yeah, amazing stuff. The way it's EQ'd and a little bit distorted just establishes this like frantic, chaotic energy of the song. And the violins are just like very slightly out of tune when they're like sliding on these high notes here. Yeah, the whole thing is just very like buzzing. Like it actually reminds me of Flight of the Bumblebee a little bit.
I'm calling. A guy like you should wear a warning. It's dangerous. I'm falling. There's no escape.
Okay, it's so punchy. The guitar strums, the drum sounds that they're using, and then the violins just kind of like sneak back in for a couple bars there before repeating that same riff from the beginning of the song. It's really just like clever and fun sequencing here. Yeah, I love that like vocal bit there. It almost feels like it's like mirroring like the violins, and it's a similar kind of idea where it's not necessarily about just being exactly on pitch, but rather it's about like conveying this like chaotic headspace that she's in.
I'm addicted to you. Don't you know that you're toxic? And I love what you do. Don't you know that you're toxic? Let's get
Yeah, nice. They've got this kind of like, I don't know, like surfer style guitar there. It sounds like the like guitar from Pulp Fiction, and definitely just like comes in out of the blue. And the song is just like throwing in like different elements and sounds here, and I think that's part of what makes the song so iconic and so engaging, and just something you can listen to over and over.
slowly. It's taking over me.
That's so good.
It's in the air and it's all around. Can you feel it? With a taste of
Okay, I was thinking a little bit about what that kind of like static sound reminded me of, and I realized what it reminds me of is the very opening of the song The Hills by The Weeknd. And The Weeknd song obviously was released way after, but I'm thinking that it's possible that The Weeknd was inspired by this sound being used in this song, Toxic by Britney Spears. And of course, both songs, you know, now are just part of like the pop culture understanding. But I think both of those songs using this kind of similar sound almost kind of like reinforces the association of that static sound with just like toxic energy.
Don't you know that you're toxic?
Wild.
Taste your lips and you're toxic.
Okay, that's so good. This kind of like electronic distorted section here. I'm pretty sure they threw some of the violin sounds in there. It almost sounds like the violins are like being played backwards or something. Yeah, you can tell they had a lot of fun producing this song.
Don't you know that you're toxic? Intoxicate me now with your loving now. I think I'm ready now. I think I'm ready now. Intoxicate me now with your loving now. I think I'm ready
Nice. Yeah, I love a song that has a little bit of like a come down outro. Of course, they had to squeeze it into this song just because the song throws absolutely everything at you. It's such an iconic song, and it's really cool that the strings are such a huge part of it. So that's basically all I have for you today. This is a video that I wanted to make for a while just to celebrate some of the innovative and interesting ways that strings have been incorporated into pop music over the years. Let me know if there's anything else you think I should check out. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about strings in pop music? Or in other genres. I think I probably want to do maybe some other videos kind of like this, but for other genres too. Well, yeah, thanks for joining me for this little listening party, and I'll see you next time.